What's going on YouTube? Chosen a barber of Humble Legend Grooming Studio, and we have another tutorial for you guys to tap in with. Today we're going to do a mid-ball fade wavelength on top, and right now I'm just blow drying, combing everything in a direction that it's supposed to go after the shampoo process. Next we're going to establish our ball guideline using the outliner blade of our detachable clipper. And as you can see, for his fade, for the start of his fade, we established it kind of midway through his C cup. And for me, I like to start my mid fades a little lower than what we will probably normally see in the industry. For me, because I like to just give myself just a little bit more room to blend, to kind of stretch that fade out, if you will. So here, as you see, I'm just taking that same blade on my detachable clipper, and I'm just cleaning up that bulk, getting rid of everything that we're not going to use, that we're not going to be cutting, should I say, that we're not going to use. And for me, I know in the industry we see a lot of barbers use their trimmers for this process. For myself, I like to use my detachable clipper simply just for the fact that I like to prolong the longevity of my trimmer blades. Yes, they are all super strong clippers these days, and they're kind of built to remove bulk, but for myself, I like to use my trimmers for those purposes. Light duty only for my trimmers. Heavy duty work, I'm gonna use the heavy duty clipper. So that's why I'll be using our Super ZR to establish all of our guidelines, as you're gonna see. So now our next guideline is our ROA blade. Again on our detachable clipper, and we're gonna take this guideline up to the temple peak point, which is again normally where you would see most mid fade start. But again, for myself, it just gives me just a little bit more room to blend this OA guideline out. You always want to do a lot of combing, a lot of brushing, combing everything in place, combing hair that's already been cut out of your way, out of your line of vision, so you can constantly see what you're doing. You can constantly see what you're cutting. For me, I like to keep my canvases as clean as possible, so I'm always always cleaning, combing, brushing, throughout my entire hair cutting process. Now, as you see, we have our 1.5 blade on our detachable clipper, and again we're running that guideline parallel to our OA guideline. This guideline is going to be a little bit thinner than the previous guideline. And as you can see, I'm taking the clipper and I'm cutting sideways. That is just strictly because that's the direction that his hair grows. So you always want to, again, comb with the grain, cut against the grain if that's what your intention is. Here, I'm intending to cut against the grain for the purposes of the fade. So that's the reason why I'm doing so. And again, that just gives you the most even, clean cut that you can possibly get. Now I'm taking that same 1.5 blade and I'm just prepping the hairline for the shape up down the road. So while I got that blade on there, I'm killing two birds with one stone, just doing some cleanup work on that hairline. Now we're just trimming the mustache down to the desired length. I believe right now I have maybe my 1 blade or my 1A blade. Using that comb kind of as a shield. So no loose hairs are flying back into the client's face, and also as a means to just give myself more space to work with, moving the nostrils out the way, pushing the nostrils up out the way a little bit. So now we are cutting the hair down to the desired length on top, and we are using our 1 3/4 length detachable blade. This blade is good for clients who again want that low dark look, but don't want to go too low. Sometimes the 1.5 blade might be a tad too short for some clients, just based on their preference. So this 1 3/4 blade is a good length for that. Shout out to one of my OGs, Logan, a couple years ago. You know, just starting. I was earlier in my career, and he suggested that I get this blade just added to my arsenal, and that's what I did. So if you don't already have this blade, this is a good blade to have. And as you can see, man, I'm following along again with the direction that his hair grows. You want to pay attention. You want to be intentional. You want to constantly comb, because that's how you're going to get the cleanest cut. That's how you're going to get the cleanest finished product. So now we're working on fading out our OA guideline, and we're starting with our JRL fresh fade clipper with the clipper closed. As you can see, I'm attacking right at that line with the full blade. And with the JRL fresh fade clippers, they have notches that you can feel clicking. So I for this section, I use each notch to blend that out. For the first 2 notches, I typically use the full blade, and I'm concentrating usually right on that line. And then from notches 3 to 5, I am using the corners of my blade, as you can see here. And I like to do that because, again, once I get past the second notch, it keeps me from creating another hard line higher up into that OA section, because again, we're blending that from the OA to the 1.5 is the next thing we're blending into. So we don't want to chase that OA up into that 1.5. So all I'm doing right now is just repeating the same steps on the left side of the head as I did on the right side of the head. I like to break my haircuts down into sections, and as you can see also, I'm pulling the skin in certain places just to ensure I get a good blend and get any dark spots. I try to detail along the way. For me, I kind of look at it as you know, when you cooking in the kitchen and you clean up as you're cooking, so by the time you get done cooking, you don't have a huge mess to clean. That's kind of how I look at it. You know, I try to do a little bit of detail work along my process, so that way by the time I get to the end of the blend, I don't have much work to do. Here we are blending in from our OA into the 1.5 using our Andis Master closed with our original OG double magnetic zero purple guard. You know, this is like a real sought after guard. So as you can see, it's missing some teeth, which actually works out because I really only use this clipper and this guard for blending out this section. So it works because I only ever really use the corners of the blade anyway. So for this section, for the OA section into the 1.5, we work with the clipper closed and the clipper halfway open. And again, initially closed, we're attacking right at that line using our C-stroke. And then as we want to get it just a little higher, we open that clipper halfway, again using the corners of our blade and using our C-stroke as well. And as you can see, my wrist isn't doing too much movement. My arm isn't really doing too much movement. I'm really just allowing the weight of the clippers and my finger and with the clippers kind of balancing on my fingers to kind of get that C-stroke motion. So and I picked that tip up from Kenny Duncan, a dope master barber. He's an instructor out of Philadelphia. So Kenny Duncan, if you're not already tuned in with him, tapped in with him, make sure y'all get with him. So here now we're just doing detail work with our Wall Legend with the fade blade. And with this clipper, I usually detail all the way from our bald guideline into the 1.5, toggling between the blade closed all the way to the blade open. And we're using a lot of the corner of our blade, as you can see. Here, just attacking that initial guideline that we made with the blade closed, using a lot of the corner. Pulling the skin, stretching that skin out just to get detailed, just to get more detailed and get in certain spots that you wouldn't be able to get into. And you want to have a light touch with your clippers. These are essentially power tools. They are built and made to do the work, to handle the job. So allow the tools to go to work. Allow the tools to do what they do. Have a light hand. You don't have to apply too much pressure. And then we're just cleaning up the very bottom of that fade here with our JR Rail fresh faded trimmers. As you can see, mostly corners, just detail work. Boom. Now we're doing clipper over comb, and we are clipper over combing the 1.5 into our 1 3/8 on top. So as you can see, I'm starting out with the wide tooth comb with the blade open. Going up and down on the comb with the clipper. And for me, again, if you're new to the channel, just tuning in with me, just tapping in with me, I am not here claiming to be the best barber in the world. I'm not claiming to have the best techniques. At the end of the day, for me, this is about growing, getting better, pushing my skill set, pushing the craft forward, and just getting better and learning. So again, I look at these tutorials as game tape for me to go back and review and learn and grow and learn from my mistakes. And so anybody out there that's watching that has any tips, that has some constructive criticism, that you notice something, point something out to me, please let me know. I can assure you that if you do point it out, I've probably already noticed it. Just because, of course, I'm watching these videos doing a voiceover, and it's a repetitive process. So I've seen this video countless times already. So I see a lot of spots, a lot of dark spots that I didn't see while cutting. But that's the purpose of this video for myself, is just game tape review for me to go back and get better. So as you saw, I had a wider tooth comb. Again, more detail work, blending into the length on top at that parietal ridge, right where the hair starts to curve. You really don't want to dig too deep into that part of the head with the fade. Now, got that 1.5 blade back on there, and it's just more detail work, more blending, more feathering, just making sure we get a good transition between the 1 3/4 length on top and everything else on the side. And here we are just polishing the haircut. So I have my outliner blade back on the clipper, and I'm just gliding over the top of the hair, getting as many loose ends I can getting the hairs that's sticking out, that's poking out. Again, this is just adding into the finished product of your cut. It lasts a little longer. Of course, some people will say it won't be that much of a difference, but I promise you, if you do this, it'll add just that extra amount of detail to the cut that, you know, some barbers may not do. So trust me, add that into it. Add that into your cut. Add that into your regimen. And you want to be careful with that. Obviously, that's a very delicate, tender spot to be in when you got an outliner blade or a trimmer, and you're freehanding over your client's head. So you want to have good reflexes. You want to pay attention to what you're doing. You want to have a soft hand, a soft touch, because again, you do not want to cut a hole into your client's head. Here again, I'm just doing more detail work with my detachable clipper. I don't always do this with every client. Again, every client, every situation is different. His hair grows in a bunch of different directions. His texture is different. So for him, for this particular client, I went back with my detachable clipper just to do some additional detail work. Here we just applying some spritz to the hairline. It's Hairline Prep. And I noticed some couple spots in the midst of it. Now we're going back to our trimmer, and we just attacking that vertical bar. And again, with the shape up, you want to keep it as natural as possible. You want to find the lowest starting point that you can, but the fullest starting point, if that makes sense. And again, in future tutorials, I will definitely go in more depth. I'll get some close-up shots of my shape up process, and I'll be able to explain it a lot more. But you don't want to push it back. For me, I don't believe in trying to get the darkest hair possible and pushing the hairline back to get the darkest hair possible and to get the sharpest look. I do not believe that. I do believe in doing what you need to do cosmetically to make sure everything is symmetrical and everything is as even as possible. However, I'm not going to push you back just to get you the super dark shape up. If you're thinning, if you're thinning in that area, or whatever the case may be, what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust how I cut your hair along the hairline to enhance the look of it instead of pushing it back. But that's just my little 2 cents. Here we got the razor work at the top of the beard. I personally prefer not to use the clipper at the top of the beard, just because I personally have learned that the razor for myself just gives me more control over the curvature of the beard. This is the cut, mid-bald fade, wavelength on top. Let me know what y'all think. Again, if y'all have any tips, any tricks, any concerns, reach out. Let me know. Comment, like, subscribe, share. Follow us on Instagram at Humble Legend Grooming. Follow us at Humble Legend Apparel. I appreciate y'all. Thank you. I'm out.